And we are live. Live from the great state of Wisconsin is the Overdue sports team. I am your host, Will Mosseth. To my right, Jake Sawinski. This is the first episode of our Mailbag show. We tweeted out a couple of days ago asking for questions, topics of any sort. So the way that this is going to work, we'll probably tweet out our Mailbag tweet once a week or so. Feel free to DM us, put it in the thread, anything that you want us to talk about. Right now, it's going to be very heavily baseball related because that's really the only sport happening right now. But as we approach other sports, always ask us about trades, schedules, any team that you follow that you want us to talk about, we'll talk about it. So we're just going to be running this like once a week. So it'll be short episodes, couple of questions submitted from followers, and we're just going to use it as a fun way to keep you guys engaged and keep us engaged on some current stuff. So you ready to dive into this bad boy?
Absolutely.
Well, our first question comes from a good friend of the show, Big Tuna Bets. He asked about the Big Tuna Bets. He asked about the Guardians. So the Guardians right now are averaging over 5 runs a game, which is 4th in the MLB. But they're pretty much middle of the pack in every offensive category. They're 15th in average. They're 8th in stolen bases, 6th in stolen bases, and they're 10th in home runs. Obviously, the pitching is very solid, but his whole question was, is it timely hitting or am I missing something with this team? Because I feel like they shouldn't be producing at the level that they're producing. So I'll let you start. What do you think on the Guardians?
Well, do you want the simple answer or the nuanced answer? Because we both agree on the nuanced answer, but I can boil this down really easy. It's Jose Ramirez. Like, he's been the anchor of that team for the last 5-6 years at least. Like, he's incredible. I mean, does he leave a lot to be desired in defense? Maybe, but that's not what we're talking about. Him at the plate, he's been like a Juan Soto-esque hitter very quietly, I feel like, for the last every year of his career. He's incredible. This year, he's hitting home runs. You see the power he has. And he's always had it. He just plays at a very not hitter-friendly park. Like, you have to hit moonshots at that place to hit home runs, and he's finding a way to do it. And that's the simplest answer. Like, he's their MVP, has been for every season he's been on the team for the most part. And I bet him to win the American League MVP. He's got a lot of competition with Aaron Judge and Juan Soto, but I got him at 35-1. I think that's a great stat for a guy like him. Started out a little slow, the average department, but he's had the slug all season. He's had home runs, RBI. He's in the league in RBI. He's got like 60 already. It's insane.
Yep.
He's going to have
57
RBI.
RBI
this year. Yeah, he's going to have 140 this year if he keeps on pace. Awesome season so far. But that's the short answer. It's him. But the nuanced answer, like, you're going to agree. You can get into it a little deeper than I can just because you know the players and what they do or whatever. But Stephen Kwan's a big piece of that. He's always on base. He's hitting like 360. I know it's a little inflated because he missed a couple of weeks, right? He missed a little bit of time. So it's a little inflated. But, I mean, he's probably going to win the batting title this year, I'd have to imagine. He'll be up there if he doesn't. But he's on base. All the guys put the ball in play. They don't strike out. That's probably the biggest reason outside of Jose Ramirez is they find a way to put the ball in play. I mean, if I had to guess, you're probably looking at it. They've got to be like top 5 in the league in strikeouts, top 10 somewhere in there.
They always are. They were last year. Yeah. They were the best team at not striking out last year, and that's pretty consistent with them. But yeah, like you said, like Stephen Kwan's always on base, but like his slug is starting to come up, which I think is huge for him. Like, yeah.
Yeah, he starts an inning on second instead of on first, and that's where you hit into the double play, or you get one strikeout, or you hit a fly ball. You know what I mean? Like, that's the weird thing about this team. It's like not Jose Ramirez, Josh Naylor, and Stephen Kwan are easily your best 3 hitters in that lineup, but the other pieces aren't as good. David Fry's having a good year. He's a good story. Like Will Brennan's got a little bit of slug. He strikes out a little bit. But they complement each other by putting the ball in play. And you have a huge advantage when you can manufacture that run. Like you said, they're top 10 in steals. You can start an inning on second or even third That's a good recipe to score runs, especially when you couple it with like an MVP potential player. Josh Naylor's having a great year. I think he has one more or one less home run than Ramirez, and he's a power guy, but like he gives you a little bit of average too. Like you'd think a guy like Naylor hits 240, he's hitting like 270, 280 right now. And I think last year he hit 300. Like that's those two guys are the emphasis, but like they all play that way. Just two of them are exceptional at it.
Yeah, 100%. Like Stephen Kwan technically, I don't think is qualified for batting average, but he's hitting 362, like you said. David Fry's hitting 355, also a guy that doesn't qualify, I don't believe, but he's got 27 RBIs. Like he's been the big story. And even a guy like Andres Jimenez, who was pretty ass at the plate last year, like really bad. Like I was a doubter in him coming into this year. I was like, if this offense is going to be good, like he has to produce something. And he has.
Yeah.
Like he's got 33 RBIs, he's hitting 276. And then you've got J-Ram, who is off to a really slow start as far as like J-Ram numbers are concerned, mostly with the on base. But like you said, like he's been slugging all year. He's up to 272 now. Like that's a great stab for AL MVP. Like he's the MVP of that team year in and year out. No questions asked.
He's the MVP of that division. Like, and
yeah,
truly, like he's a top 5 player in the entire American League every year. I mean, there's a pitcher or two, like the best pitcher. I feel like pitchers should always be talked about in that conversation. It's been a few years since we've had like a really obvious case of a pitcher who should be like in the talks of the MVP race, but I feel like they should always be included if they're good enough. So I always like thinking in my mind, okay, one pitcher will emerge. I don't know if that's going to be the case this year, but Aaron Judge and Juan Soto are up there every year. I mean, Juan Soto's been in the National League for a long time, but when you get on base 40% of the time, you're always in the discussion. It doesn't matter if you hit 15 home runs or 40. Like, he's always on base. Kyle Tucker is, hopefully he can be healthy because he's the spark of that Astros team right now. Jose Ramirez is right there. That's my point. Like, he's always in the discussion. He's always one of the best players in not just the American League, but the entire league. And he anchors that team. A lot of guys play like him. They're not as good, but they do the same things he does. He puts the ball in play. He hits a lot of doubles. It's a sac fly. Like, honestly, the focal point is they don't strike out. In a league where you see strikeouts up everywhere, he doesn't strike out. They don't strike out.
Yeah, 100%. To me, the biggest difference is their ability to manufacture runs. Like last year, like you were just mentioning, like they had guys that were on base a lot, but outside of Ramirez, there wasn't a lot of slug on that team. And they really had to get the ball out of the yard to score. They were one of those teams. Like the ball wasn't leaving the yard, they probably weren't scoring. And this year they have the ability of having multiple guys that have that slug in Josh Naylor, David Fry, J-Ram, like, and the stolen base thing just adds to it. Like when you're able to turn singles into doubles, I mean, they've got 57 stolen bags already. Like that. So yeah, I think a piece of it is the timely hitting. Like they're getting hits when they need to, but they always have guys in scoring position. Like, there's always runners on in scoring position.
Yeah, exactly. It's not timely when you're always in that position. Like every inning, it seems like they threaten to score every inning because they draw a walk. Or, I mean, you're on second because of an error, or you're on first because of an error, and all of a sudden it's a double. Like when you do those things consistently, it's not timely anymore. It's like part of your DNA. And like you're seeing that. Like they're probably the best example of teams that can manufacture runs, like them and the Brewers. The Brewers are kind of similar in that respect, right? Except they strike out a lot. That's the only difference to me. Anyways, I mean, I think the Brewers lead the league in steals too. They have slug.
Yeah.
Same thing. You know, it's just the Guardians do it better.
Yeah, 100%. The lack of strikeouts thing is far and out the most important part of that. Yeah, when you've got guys on third with nobody out, and even if it's just like a slapdick ground ball to the right side, doesn't matter. You're scoring a run.
I'll take.
Yeah.
I'll take.
Yeah. Those are the two big things. And they're, like I said, they're 16th in the league. They're only hitting 238 as a team, which is not a great average, decent for where the MLB standard is at this point in time, but
not
you're pretty
record.
much, yeah, not for their record. Right. Yeah. Obviously the pitching is solid, which is resulting in a lot of those wins, but they just have been so so good at manufacturing runs. They're a really hard team to beat. But yeah, simple answer, J-Ram.
Yeah.
Other than that, they play good team baseball. They do. They're like you said, like they're probably the best example of team baseball. You always say it with the Brewers, you're like, individually, the players kind of stink, but when they come together, they play really, really well.
It's the same thing, but all but like 4 of them. It's kind of the same thing. They just complement each other well based on that play style.
Yeah, and I think the management is a big piece of that. I know you're a big Tito guy. I don't think he was a good. You're a big Tito guy. I don't think he was a great fit there, just based on how the team has performed. Because it's like the roster construction hasn't changed, but there's got to be something internally, philosophy wise, that's changed since Tito left.
It's showing.
Yeah, with Stephen Vogt, who I think is awesome. I think that's been a big piece of it. I think it goes a long way, much more than people like to admit. So I think it's like a culmination of 3 or 4 things and then boiled down to just like really good team baseball. You got anything else on the guards?
Nope, not at all. They're good. They're fun.
They are fun. Next one, the talk of the town, the young stud for Oakland, Mason Miller. He's transitioned into the bullpen this year. He's 11-12 on saves. He's been pretty much as unhittable as it gets. He was breaking Fangraphs. He was breaking the advanced stats because of how good he was. He was putting up like negative FIP numbers and all this crazy stuff that people had never seen before. We know Oakland is one for bad trades. Is he a trade candidate at the deadline?
Well, for me, like, I'm always trying to think of the lens of how the teams do it. It's not because I'm like a big organization slurper or anything like that. I'm just like being realistic about it. I mean, perhaps it's me not understanding the situation as well with the whole A's thing, them moving and the team philosophy, whatever the hell. But I look at it in the lens of like, are you going to make your team better by trading him? And he's awesome. Like, probably been the best relief pitcher in baseball so far this year. But you're the Oakland A's. What are your prospects for the next 3-4 years? Nothing. Like, just, and they're fun this year. Like, they got good pieces, but like, they're still 3, 4, 5 years away from being like a legitimate contender if they do everything right. And as you said, they're a team that never does anything right. Like, I mean, they let guys like Matt Chapman go, Matt Olson go. The list goes on and on and on. I don't know. I'd say Frankie Montes, but I don't know if they lost that one. He hasn't played like, at all in the last 3-4 years. But the point is, it's like you need to do everything right to get into a position where they can contend. And like, we're not at the point where it's like, oh, the A's were just in the AL playoffs. That was 5-6 years ago. Like, that's gone. Like, you should be coming out of your rebuild, and it seems like they're just going into it. So for me, like, them trading him makes sense, especially if you can acquire farm talent, because that's how you have to do it. Like, you have to eat it. But like, the problem with them is they've been eating it but not getting any better. So like, for me, what are they going to do? Instead of losing 100 games, they're going to lose 95 games or 90 games if they keep him. They're not making the playoffs. They're not going anywhere. And it's like you have so many other fires to put out on that team to begin with. You keeping him doesn't really make you a ton better. You might have a totally different opinion on it, but that's just how I look at it. It's like, how are you going to, like, if you were a year away, sure, hang on to him. You could probably sacrifice that, but they're not. Like, look who they're rolling out to start games. Look at the rest of the bullpen. You know what I mean? It's been better this year, but like, I feel like more of that is overperforming than some of those guys like developing into talent. Like, they're not good. And like, yeah, they're fun. Nerdy baseball Twitter likes them because like, oh, look at them. Last year they had 7 wins on June 1st. Now they have 27. You know what I mean? They're still not good at the end of the day. Like, the 500 is the benchmark, and you're not even close to it. Like, they're still going to win 65 games maybe. So it's like, if you can better your team for future prospects, I'm all for that. I think they should trade him if they have an opportunity to do so.
Yeah. I'm kind of on the fence with it. I think situationally you nailed it. Like I think if they do trade him, that's kind of the logic that goes into it. So they have 3 years of control left on Mason Miller before his rookie contract expires. So they'll be in pre-arb next year, et cetera, et cetera. To me, if they trade him, we were kind of talking about this pre-show, it won't be a blockbuster deal. Like you're not going to see Mason Miller go for like current pro guys with big contracts. We all know that A's payroll is next to nothing, so they can't really afford to take on big contracts on established people. However, they can shop him for pro-ready farm guys. So a couple of landing spots I think would make sense if they were to trade him would be like the Yankees, the Orioles, the Braves, who are all in need of, or even the Padres. They all have great farm systems, plenty of talent to give up to where the farm won't really feel it if they do. We kind of saw it with the Padres on how they did the Luis Arias trade. Like they're not really going to feel that. We saw it with the Orioles on the Corbin Burns trade. They didn't really feel it. So if they do trade him, you'll see something like that. You'll see a couple of top prospects that are probably pro-ready guys, and it'll be like a 3 or 4 for 1, because it's not like the A's are paying him right now. He's only making the league minimum. He's making $740 a year, 740,000, not million. So I could see it. To me, based on what I have heard out of both Mason Miller and the A's organization, is that they are trying to get him back into the starter role, like how he came up. Ended in some injury stuff last year, so it's kind of hard to say. You mentioned it earlier too, like if you're a starter that converts to the bullpen and you're really good in the bullpen, why would you want to become a starter again? Like, why would you want to do that to yourself? I just think he's 25 this year, so it's probably one of those things. He's young. He wants to be in that spot, especially when you're on a team that's kind of on a nowhere track. I get it. But I don't know. I don't necessarily think he will be. I think that I'd like to see what position those teams are in come the deadline. Like I want to see where the Braves bullpen is at come the deadline, and like the Yankees bullpen come the deadline, because that's one of those things that like this could be a ring guy. Like this could be like your winner. This could be the league winner. If a team is in contention and they need a bullpen piece, go get him. I think the Dodgers would be a fantastic candidate for him. Evan Phillips is their current closer. If you've ever watched Dodgers baseball in the playoffs, you know that like the stopgap is the bullpen, because the offense every single year, the offense is always good enough to get you in the playoffs, but the pitching is never good enough to get you a ring. So we all know they're fantastic at developing talent. They're not just a buy talent team. They have a great farm system. There's a handful of guys that they could shop, go get Miller, and let him close out games in the playoffs. Like I love that move for LA. I think that bullpen of the teams we just listed is probably in the most need of a really good bullpen arm. And I think they're going to be on the hunt for a closer anyways. So if there's any whiff of him being on the table, I do not be surprised if the Dodgers are involved. Yeah, especially because it's not like they're going to have to pay him or anything. So they've got a good farm system. They can shop a handful of guys. That's kind of some landing spots I would see. I'd kind of be bummed to see him go, but I would love to have him as a Dodger. I would be, as a fan, I would be very excited to have him. But I think he'll go somewhere that can afford it, not in money, but in talent. Like, can you give up 4 of your top prospects for this guy? And is it worth a ring? And I think a lot of those teams will probably say yes. If you're one piece away and your piece is a bullpen arm, go get him. Do whatever you can. Sell out for it.
Yeah, well said. I mean, there's a little more nuance than what I said, but like you alluded to, the switching from the closer role to the starter role. You mentioned pre-show, like availability is a tough thing for him. He's hurt a lot when he was starting. It's like you do no good to your team if you're hurt. Like you don't. Like your best ability is your availability above all else. And it's like if you can't do it, I mean, I'm sure he could. It's just like relievers are a hot commodity, and they always will be, because that's what really gets you over the hump.
Yep.
I mean, starters are not immune to bad days, especially with him. Like, I think he's blown 2 or 3 saves, and he pitches
blown one,
all the
just
time.
one. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I bet on the Rays last week.
Yeah.
Like Jose Siri had a home run. Yeah, that was funny. Like, I don't know how I walked into that one, but it managed to work for me. But yeah, it's like there's nothing wrong with being a closer at all. Those are the cool guys. Those are the head cases that go to the mound. They're just psychopaths. A lot of pressure being a reliever, you're never in an easy spot because you're the closer. Like, it's got to be close. It's closer. Whole point. So it's like I would be reluctant to wish him to do that, but I thought you nailed it pretty well for the most part. It's like, who's going to be a buyer? He's definitely going to be inquired about. That's a guarantee. Like, someone's going to call the A's and be like, what do we need to do to make this work? And I think you made a good point too about being, farm guys being pro ready. That's what the A's need. It's going to be like a pitching kind of deal. They have no problems hitting for the most part. It's their pitching. But
yeah,
couple that with their time horizon. Like, I think we kind of see both sides of it, but like for me, it's like it doesn't really pay to keep him. Like, you're not going anywhere with him or without him. So that's how I think of it, anyways.
Yeah, I agree. We got one more, came in yesterday, sent out a tweet about Braves top prospect. He's their number 2 prospect. Hurston Waldrep pitched at Florida last year. He's got crazy good stuff. He's the number 2 in the Braves system. He just got called up to AAA. He's pretty close to pro ready. He's one of the true guys that throws like a true split finger, and it's it's disgusting. Looked really good in his first AAA start. Tweeted about him. Somebody asked, does it make sense for the Orioles to trade Heston Kjerstad for Hurston Waldrep? And I had some mixed feelings about it because Heston Kjerstad is pro ready. He's already, he's had a cup of coffee in the bigs, but that's about it. But they don't have a spot for him. With Acuna going down, obviously Atlanta's going to be on the hunt for an outfielder. He's not your center fielder like Acuna is, but he's a really good bat, and I think they could benefit for it. I think the trade makes sense. However, I think they would have to pair it with something. So the Braves farm system is bolstered with pitching, and the Orioles is kind of flip-flopped, like stud hitters. We've seen them all. You got Jackson Holiday, you got Kobe Mayo, you got Heston Kjerstad, you got all these guys that are like otherworldly hitters. I think they'll have to package him. But I could see like Heston Kjerstad and Mac Horvath going over. So 2 really good bats that are approaching one pro ready and one approaching pro ready for a guy like Hurston Waldrep. In the Brave system, you have AJ Smith-Shawver ahead of him. You've got Bryce Elder, who's kind of fluctuating up and down as guys get hurt in front of him. And they've got some really good arms behind him. So for me, I actually like that trade. I think it makes a lot of sense. The Orioles have Felix Bautista on the shelf right now. And so even if it's just a rental and you say we're going to use him as a bullpen guy, or even just stick him in the farm and wait for a rotation spot to open up, they're not going to have Corbin Burns forever. That was more of a rental kind of trade for them.
He's due for payday.
Yeah, and I don't know if the O's will give it to him. So I think that would be a huge trade for the O's. I think it would be a really good piece to add for them because the back end of that rotation, they're innings eaters like John Means and Tyler Wells, who are both on the shelf right now. They just went out this week on the IL. They're both innings eaters. So I think it would be really good for them to go get a top guy that can fill in, like basically filling the gap that DL Hall was supposed to fill before they traded him to Milwaukee for Corbin Burns. So I think that's what this trade would emulate, is doing something like that. And I think it would be a really good trade for both sides because Heston Kjerstad may never play if he sticks in Baltimore. So I think you're going to see him go eventually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'll say, I think you handled the specifics pretty well. Like for me, I don't know the minor league guys like you do. You watch a lot of college ball. I don't know shit about college ball. I'm not one of those guys that pretends to, but it's kind of like college basketball going into the pros, right? You remember those guys because that's what we watch most of the time, college basketball. So I thought you did a pretty good job of illustrating, the position specific stuff, right? For me, I just kind of think of it logistically. Like you said, he plays corner infield, right?
Yeah, some third, first, and then he's a corner outfielder. He's listed as mainly an outfielder, but he played third in college. So he's listed as an outfielder. So he'd probably be filling a gap in the corner spots for the Braves or a DH first base kind of thing with Olsen.
Yeah, and like you just kind of have to look at the roster of each team, right? Like the Braves are pretty versatile, right? I mean, you've got your anchors in the infield. Like Matt Olson plays first base, plays pretty good first base too, to my knowledge, anyways. Austin Riley's there. He's not going anywhere. Acuna, did you say he plays center field? I played right field, but I could be wrong. They might have switched that. I thought they had Michael Harris in center, but
yeah, Michael Harris is in center. Sorry.
Oh, okay. That's not the focal point of it. I was just, I feel like they're versatile enough to make it work somehow. Like you could DH Olsen, have him play first base. You could have who plays left field for them? Is that
Marcell Ozuna? Well, no, he's DHing.
Oh, okay, yeah. Who plays left for him then? He normally would play left field, but he's not a great defender. That's why he's DHing.
Yeah. Yeah, you get Ozuna a lot, Michael Harris, and why am I blanking on?
Oh, would be.
Jared Kelenic. Jared Kelenic, which you have no idea what you're going to get out of him.
Yeah, they took
they took a flyer on him.
Notorious trade winners, yeah, but he was a flyer for sure. Like, who knows if that one's going to work? And the guy didn't hit a home run for like 2 months, but
and they have that's
not why it won't work. But
yeah, and Adam Duvall has been filling in for Acuna in the outfield. So some vets.
Tour. Yeah. So like I feel like September would be a great time to slide him in there for 2 days a week. That might work. And like the Braves will make it work. I think it's more so on the Orioles. Like the Braves definitely have a need. I just think they have their own pitching troubles too. The Braves kind of do. Like they have what did you say his name was? Smith Schauber?
Yeah, he's been up and down. Yeah.
Yeah, but like he's been okay, but like Bryce Elder's been riding the struggle bus. Strider's hurt. So it's like they might envision that guy they want to trade. I don't even remember his name. I'm sorry. But like they might need that guy. You know what I mean? And like the position players are passable for the Braves, even with Acuna out. Like they haven't been hitting well, like as well as they should be. Like Acuna's a huge, catalyst of that offense. But they'll be okay without him. You know what I mean? So I think a lot of it is to do with what the Orioles are willing to give up for that guy. And the Braves will do it if the offer is enticing enough, and they are definitely good enough on the coaching side to make it work too. I mean, there's a reason why they win 100 games every year and haven't lost in June in like 15 years. It seems like they never lose in June. Like there's a reason why it all works out for them because they've got very talented people off the field too. So to me, it's just like it makes sense. So whoever posed the question, like you know what you're talking about. Like it definitely makes sense. Both sides have the need. It's just what are the Braves planning doing with their pitching? Because I don't think their pitching is as deep as it appears to be. Like they need that prospect pool.
Yeah.
And B, like what are the Orioles willing to do? Because like who's going to entertain that offer? Because like you said, they don't have room for that kid. They really don't. I mean, I feel like your outfield's a little older. Like, I mean, Mullins might even DH. I don't even know if he plays center field anymore.
He does a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, but they're your veterans. I know Mullins likes to get hurt in weird ways, get hit with shit or whatever. But Santander's an older guy too, but I think he DHs replaced right field. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you've got Austin Hayes. And then they've got Colton Cowser, who's a rookie this year, who's been playing a lot. He's been playing center and corner. So it's like there's really
there's nowhere to put them. Yeah. That's the thing. Like if there was like an obvious laggard on their team, then it would make a lot of sense. But like they really don't have any glaring needs for a position player. And they're loaded. Like you might see another one of those prospects move too. Like I wouldn't be surprised. Like they're deep in the position piece of it, and they need the pitching. So what are they willing to give up? Like the trade makes perfect sense. It's just both sides, giving up a little to get what they need.
Yeah.
Good question though.
That was a good one. That came in yesterday. It wasn't even on the mailbag tweet. It was just a question on his tweet. Well, that's our show, folks. Be sure to check us out at Overdue Sports on Twitter, overduesports.com. Like and subscribe. Always be sure to pose questions and stuff, which we take note, throw them in my phone in the notepad, and we bring them up once a week, and we'll start doing this mailbag episode and start cranking them out. So if you ever have any topics, doesn't matter what sport. Obviously, baseball is the big one right now, but college football schedules have been released. NFL schedules have been released. So if you got football questions and you're jonesing for it, we'll talk about it. So be sure to check us out everywhere. Keep engaging with it, and we are out of here.